encourage other people that are struggling and maybe feel disadvantaged, to let them know anything is really possible, and it really is up to you.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the new episode of eCom 365. I'm co-founder and CEO of ShopAgain.io. For this episode, I have a new guest with me, Todd Snively. Very, very exciting story and very different from the other guests we have had on our podcast before. Todd started 10 businesses, growing 7 to 8 figures, culminating in his current $50 million e-commerce business. But before this, Todd spent 5 years in prison. And when he was out of it, he was completely broke. And from that point to where he is right now, it's a story of determination and hard work. And Todd believes there are no shortcuts to success. And that's exactly what we're going to hear from him and learn from him. How are you doing today?
Well, it's my absolute privilege to be here, and I couldn't be doing any better. Every day is a blessing. And I listened to that introduction, which thank you very much for. Brings back some terrible memories, but at the same time, it makes me, just so thankful, for where I am here today, and to be able to be around to talk about a story like this, to hopefully encourage other people that are struggling and maybe feel disadvantaged, to let them know anything is really possible, and it really is up to you.
So, tell us more about where you started from and how you got here. Would love to hear your story.
Oh, happy to. So, I actually started my first business in 1983. And everybody's quick to point out, well, was there internet back then? I'm like, no, there was no internet back then. Okay. We had to use things like direct mail, where you actually put a postcard in the mail to send to somebody. We didn't have email and things like that. There's a lot of correlations. It's kind of funny. I look back now and I can correlate the old with the new. So the techniques are still the same, but the method of accomplishing them have advanced because of technology, of course. So I did join the Air Force right out of high school, 17 years old. I joined early so I could start experiencing some life. And I did want to fly. I actually had my pilot's license before my driver's license. So I was very much into aviation. I wasn't able to fly for the Air Force because my eyes got bad. So when I got out, I started that first business in 1983. But I still wanted to fly for a living. So I made enough money from the sale of that first business to go out and complete my flying career, and began flying under contract for the post office and FedEx and UPS. Now, the reason I tell that story is because here I am. I've achieved my dream. I've got that job that everybody says is an amazing job. And I was making $28,000 a year flying at night, all at night, gone every other day, every other weekend, dodging thunderstorms and hurricanes, not hurricanes, I'm sorry, tornadoes. I actually flew in between 2 tornadoes one night and just scared the crap out of me. But anyway, 2 things happened that really changed my life. And this was in 1988 at this point. I had 3 major engine failures in a 90-day period, one of which I almost died from. And the second thing was my brother passed away, my younger brother, 2 years younger than me. And I just said, okay, I got to make a change in my life. My brother's dead. So obviously life is precious. I don't have a lot of time potentially. I almost died in this airplane incident. So I said, I'm going to go out and I'm going to start another business again. But long story short, I got involved with commodity trading right around 1994 and was very, very good at it, and went and pursued some licenses so that I could manage money for other people. Eventually, I formed my own brokerage firm, and I had this brilliant idea that I was going to be able to have a discount firm and clear everyone's trades off exchange through the same kind of processes I thought the Forex exchange was using. Well, the government didn't agree with me, okay? There was a lot involved in this. In any event, right here we are in February of 2002, and they basically said, we're going to make an example out of you, and just shut me down hard. So I have nothing, and I'm $2.2 million in debt. And at that point, I didn't know if I was headed to prison or not. It was a big question mark. But what I did know was I had to do something. So I went to lunch with a friend, and he asked me, he says, well, what are you going to do? And I said, I honestly don't have a clue. And he took a bite of his sandwich and he said, well, why don't you try selling stuff on that eBay? I understand people are making money on eBay. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. It was just so different from what I was used to and the paths I had been down before. It just didn't seem right to me. But I'm driving home after that lunch and I'm thinking, well, what else do I have to try right now? And as I got home, I'm walking around and I'm seeing all of these things I had bought over the years that were just sitting there. They were just things all of a sudden. So let me try this eBay stuff. So I listed these personal items that I had. Everything sold faster and for more money than I expected. So I said, okay, there's something here. We have to figure out how to systematize this, how to be able to scale it. And step one was, how am I going to get more inventory? And that's when I discovered customer returned goods. And it was actually, it was even huge back in 2002. I mean, the amount of customer returned goods out there, it's almost an infinite number. It's so big. And I ended up buying a whole truckload, 26 pallets of customer return goods from Sam's Club. And it was kind of funny. My wife says to me, well, where are you gonna put 26 pallets? How much stuff is that? And I go, I really don't know. I said, I think they'll fit in the garage. She said, well, how big's a pallet? And I said, I really don't know. She goes, well, don't you think you should find out? And I go, well, yeah, truck's coming in 3 days. I should probably find out. And I went out, measured the garage and yeah, no, only going to fit about 8 pallets in there. So went and found some cheap warehouse space down the road, came back home all excited. Now I've bought 24 pallets of God knows what, and just signed a 12-month lease on a warehouse in a bad part of town. And now now I don't know how to unload the truck. Well, long story short, I got a used forklift and was able to squeeze it on the last credit card we had. And so here I am driving around this empty warehouse in this used forklift, trying to figure out how to work it and not kill anybody, waiting for this truck to show up in a couple of hours with 26 pallets of who knows what. And it hit me at that moment. It absolutely hit me and said, wow, what if I made a mistake? You know, I mean, because I try to keep that doubt out of my mind. Once I've made a decision, I just want to move forward. But I mean, picture yourself in an empty warehouse trying to learn to drive a forklift so you can unload a truck of stuff you have no idea if it's worth what you paid for, much less you're going to make some money. Long story short, truck driver showed up, unloaded the truck, started to open some of the pallets and went through a couple of them. And I said, oh, this might actually work. And so I figured out how many hours I had to spend in that warehouse to make X number of listings to generate X amount of profit just to stay even with paying the lawyers and being able to eat and, you know, everything like that. And I would not leave that warehouse until I had accomplished at least that much work. Once we actually had a little profit, I started to hire people to do the things that weren't profit producing necessarily, like the shipping clerk and the listing clerk. And those first 12 months, we made $1.1 million selling on eBay in 2003, 2004. Absolutely crazy. But that was 2004. That was when I got involved with Google AdSense. Are you familiar with the AdSense program?
Yeah.
You know, Google, we had built a lot of websites to sell products in addition to Amazon. And, you know, Google would keep sending me emails. They're like, you should really try the AdSense program and on this site and that site and the other site. And I'm like, oh, okay. So finally, I took their little snippet of code, put it on one of my websites. And 3 days later, I looked at the analytics, the report, and I had made $1.68 from Google AdSense. And I thought about that. And I said, wait a minute. I said, that's kind of cool because I didn't do much. I put the little snippet of code on the site. Some traffic came and a couple of clicks on the Google ads. And Google says, we're going to give you this $1.68 or whatever. And I'm like, wow, if we can just multiply that, right, we could do really well. Long story short, I had about 2.5 million index pages on Google, averaging 135,000 a month from AdSense income. So once we started to do that, I actually sold my eBay business. It was a little distribution business. It had a couple other things with it, and we sold it. And I had a 3-year non-compete. Well, as soon as the AdSense money started to come in, that's when I heard from the government. And they basically said, yeah, we kind of want you to go to prison for a little bit. And it wasn't until 2005 when this was finally decided and the judge sentenced me to 60 months in federal prison. Was one count. And they didn't even really know what to charge me with because it was a very complicated commodities case. But they basically said your customer agreement was really difficult for people to understand. So we're just going to call it mail fraud. I'm like, okay. We didn't have a plea or anything. I just said, I'll go in, I'll plead guilty to this one count of mail fraud, and the judge will just do what the judge is going to do. I had no idea what to expect, but I wasn't expecting 60 months. So October 2005 was when I took myself to prison. It was in Pennsylvania. And I felt pretty decent because we had the AdSense business going. The lawyers were getting paid. I was chipping away at the 2.2 million that I owed. And we didn't declare bankruptcy or anything. We just turned our house over to the government and they gave me credit for that. But in sitting in prison, right around 2006, the AdSense business stopped working. You know, Google, you may have heard of these Google slaps where Google changes their algorithm. And basically our money ran out before I was able to get out of prison. And ultimately, on that 60-month sentence, I spent 3 years and 3 days actually confined. So I got out in October of 2008. And the first day I was out, it was like, what am I going to do again? And so I said, well, my non-compete is over. I'm going to start another eBay business. I didn't know what else to do. So I did the exact same thing. This time, the first 12 months now, we generated $3 million in income. And so this would have been 2009. I was buying liquidation items through liquidation.com, 10 cents on the dollar, 12 cents on the dollar, sorting through the garbage, mostly still selling on eBay and my own websites. And then one day into the warehouse came a pallet full of boxes of customer return goods, but all of the boxes were from Amazon. I said, Amazon? I said, that's kind of weird. I've heard of Amazon, but the one time I looked at it, I thought it was just a little too complicated and convoluted, and I was already doing really good with eBay. I said, well, let me go. Well, why is all this stuff here from Amazon? And I went and found out that Amazon was liquidating their customer returned goods, a good chunk of them, through liquidation.com. So I went and I looked at Amazon and found out I could sell used stuff on Amazon as used. So here I am selling these used customer return goods on Amazon and doing really well. But I said, wow, if, somebody sold this as new initially. So I started to look for the sources of these products and became well acquainted with these wholesale distribution companies that were handling numerous different brands of products, and learned that I could buy wholesale from them and then sell at wholesale on as new on Amazon. So here I am selling new stuff on Amazon, used stuff on Amazon, used stuff on eBay, and it just kept growing and growing and growing. And here it is now. That was 2009. Here it is 2022. And to your point, it's been, well north of 50 million.
Amazing. Most recently, what products have you been selling on Amazon, the used products?
The thing with Amazon is you have to stay away from the real popular stuff. Amazon puts out these lists, these top 100 sellers. Those are they might be the top 100 sellers, but they're the top 100 no profit type products also. You can't be selling the super competitive high velocity. You just won't make any money. The average person can't strike a deal with a distributor or a brand that's going to get them a purchase price that's going to allow them to be competitive on a marketplace like Amazon. So what you have to do is you have to find the lower velocity products that still have demand, but not so many competitive sellers that you can't still make a profit, right? So we look for more obscure products that have, like I said, good margin, good profit, but not a lot of competition yet. And then we'll ride that until it hits what we call the end of its product life cycle. That happens when a lot of Amazon sellers start to see this rising in the organic listings, and they all pile on. They don't know how to behave, so they crash the price, they race it to zero. That product's done. It's toast. The real money's in the middle of the pack there, or even at the beginning of a life cycle. You can take a chance on something that has a super high BSR, which means it doesn't sell very, very frequently. The BSR is a best-selling rank. One being the best. The number one product at Amazon will have a 1 BSR, and it can go up to a couple of million. So you want to be looking for these best-selling ranks that aren't the best, so that you can take advantage of the fact that there's not a lot of sellers. And we do this with software. Basically, we get these huge inventory files from these wholesalers. We run them through the analysis software, and it tells us these are the products you should be looking at. So that's how you can, one of the ways we systematize what we're doing and take an infinite amount of research and have it done in a very short period of time, so that we know where to invest our money. Then many of these things, it becomes managing the reordering of those products and adding additional products, and that's how you scale. It's been a little more difficult the last couple of years because of the international pandemic.
Yeah.
It really hit. Well, initially it was kind of strange. Initially, we basically sold 3 years of inventory in 6 months. People were just hoarding and buying everything online. So all of our inventory, which are mostly consumer products anyway, pet products and sometimes grocery products and lawn and garden products and things like that, man, people were just buying them, and the inventory disappeared fast. So now we're depending on the suppliers, the wholesale distributors, to restock from the brands, and the brands are depending on their overseas manufacturing capability to keep up with that demand, a demand that nobody had ever seen so high. So things started to break, right? Factories were like, well, no, we're not going to open because we have COVID here, so we're closed for that. It was just one thing after the other. And that basically caused a lot of Amazon sellers to, I don't want to say go out of business. I think they more or less made the choice to just pivot into something else because they couldn't buy anything.
Yeah.
Well, we had wisely created some, in addition to this wholesale model I'm talking about, which I really love, we had created some private label brands. And I probably had 600 SKUs of my own that were all manufactured within the United States. I didn't have a problem. I never ran out of inventory. The sales just kept growing because the demand was high. It's a lot like Prime Day is coming up here, on the 12th and the 13th in a week or so. It's just like Prime Day is nothing but a big, huge traffic surge onto Amazon. And the same thing's going to happen. You have to make sure you stock up extra for Prime Day because of the increased amount of traffic. And that's what we've seen the last couple of years is the traffic online just keeps increasing, especially at Amazon. So the trick the last couple of years has been finding actual things that you can sell. And if you do find things that you can sell, things that you can actually restock. Otherwise, you're constantly in that research mode, trying to find new products just to stay where you were last month. People have been having a lot of trouble scaling because of this.
Amazing story, Todd. So one thing that hits me is that when I hear your story, especially the part where you got into eBay and then Amazon, it sounds like everything worked out just fine. Everything worked out great, but life is never like that. So tell me a couple of things that didn't work for you, in that part of your life, and how did you get your way there?
Well, there was this one time where Amazon actually suspended our selling account. And it was due to, I'm going to call them false intellectual property claims. So there was this period of time when brands were trying to manipulate and take advantage of the intellectual property reporting system that Amazon had put in place. Like Amazon doesn't want anybody selling counterfeit items, but what they were taking the brand's word, or whatever law firm the brand hired to protect their brand. They were taking just their word. Hey, this guy's selling counterfeit items, shut them down. And Amazon would remove the products. Well, if you got enough of those kinds of complaints, and they were proliferating at that time, they would suspend your seller account. And then at that point, the only thing you could do is hire a lawyer and have the lawyer contact the brands and say, hey, we know this is nonsense. Let's, if you don't want to get sued, you need to retract those complaints that were false. And every one of them was false. But that takes time. And Amazon is not very transparent with anything they do. So a week went by, 2 weeks went by, a month went by, and I'm constantly talking to the lawyer. What's going on? Where are we at? How can we get this fixed? And, 2 months went by and 3 months went by. After 3 months, I kind of said to myself, well, I guess I'm done as an Amazon seller. I mean, this 3 months and they haven't reinstated me. They probably have no intentions. So I went and started to spend more time in some of my other profit centers, publishing. I have other websites that we run the advertising on. I have my own private label brand. I thought to myself, how does the average person survive this? What if something like that happens to somebody like that? It's not like they can't pivot into one of the 6 other online profit centers they've created. They've got the one. They've completely trusted it to Amazon. And I was telling people before this happened to me, I said, you can't have all your eggs in one basket. You need to diversify. But I said, but don't diversify so far left and right that there's no correlation between what you're doing. You want to be able to take some of the assets that you have and just reposition them and use them in other verticals to create additional income that's not connected or related, right? And so most people, though, they just ignore that. They're like, no, things are going great. Amazon's wonderful, and I'm just going to build my Amazon business, and I only have so much time and so much capital. And same thing would happen for whatever reason. I mean, you can make an honest mistake on Amazon and they don't care. Yeah. They'll suspend you. And if they do want to reinstate you, they'll take their time about it, but you're going to have to get a lawyer. I mean, most people can't write a plan of action that'll get accepted, depending on what they did. So, you can't have all those eggs in one basket. And I knew that because from what had happened to me previously. So when we started up the eBay business the second time, that's when I started to look at other ways, to complement that income, so that I was worried about something happening to my eBay account. And then dealing with Amazon was, has been very interesting. But at the same time, it's been one of the most rewarding profit centers that we've had. You just have to be, very careful to follow all of the rules. And if you have any questions about what you're doing, you probably shouldn't do it. It's just follow the rules and have other profit centers going, whether they're e-commerce related or just online income. That's the best way to go about it.
Absolutely. I think, that's I completely agree with your advice, what you mentioned. If you say this to people, most people will come back with the same answer, this is working great, and maybe another time. But you don't know when that another time is going to come, or it's never going to come.
They're like, I remember one time somebody called me. There's this big scam out there. It's called Amazon automation. Right now, there's Walmart automation and eBay automation. These automation services, for the most part, are a scam. Okay, the concept. So this person called me and said, "I want your advice on this." They want me to give them $50,000 up front. They're going to start an Amazon store for me. They're going to find all the products. They're going to use my credit card. I'm going to pay them $300 a month and 50% of the profits. What do you think? And I said, "Is it this guy?" Yeah. That's a scam. That guy is literally a scam, and I showed her hundreds of negative reviews about this guy. I said, this guy is literally minutes away from the rug pull where he basically takes everybody's money and disappears. And you know what she said to me? "Oh, I don't know. It still sounds pretty good." Woman, have you not listened to me? Of course it sounds good. That's how they get you. They make it sound so good. It's better to learn how to do these things. And then if you have some resources, then you can hire somebody to take over the things that are taking up your time, right? There's tons of experts out there. Don't be so lazy to give somebody 50 grand with the promise that they're going to build you $100,000 a month store.
It brings one funny point to my mind. I mean, whenever I see, for example, someone writing a book, How to Become a Billionaire, I check out if the writer himself is a billionaire or not. So if somebody's saying, I'm going to make you $10 million on Amazon, have they actually done it for themselves? That's
I couldn't
one
agree with you
reality.
more. So the internet is great for, one thing, but on the other side, it makes it so much easier for people to take advantage of others. And
Yeah, true.
I'm finding it's my age group that's getting taken advantage of. The guys, and ladies from 45 to 65, they're the ones that have, the big bulk of the resources of wealth in the country, and they're getting ready to retire, and things are kind of strange in the economy right now. So my big thing is to tell people to be careful, and if it is too good to be true, it probably is, and get other people to look at it and give you some advice. So I can understand how people can feel alone in these kinds of decisions sometimes, but just be careful.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, Todd. It was wonderful to speak with you. This episode was sponsored by ShopAgain.io, an AI-powered customer retention platform for e-commerce. Thank you.